So you might be feeling like you're stuck in life, or no matter what you're doing, you keep hitting the same walls, or you think that your talent and your effort isn't enough to get you where you want to be, or you just simply want to get better and you're just wondering what should you do, how you can get there. The answer to all of these thoughts, or like all of these questions, lies in your mindset and the limiting beliefs you have consciously or subconsciously adopted for yourself. And so I think a lot of people don't realize that success is not just about working harder, but a lot of times it's just about thinking differently. So in this video, I'm going to share with you 10 practical mindset shifts that will help you to reinvent your life. And that exact intro essentially brings me to my first point, which is that you don't need to rediscover yourself. You need to rediscover your beliefs. Every single time we are faced with a problem or a situation that is somehow difficult, that is a challenge, the first thoughts we tend to make is something along the lines of, I can't do it. I can't solve it. I'm not good enough. And a dozen of other answers or like considerations that create this narrative of inadequacy. We look at ourselves from a lack mindset at all times. I'm not pretty enough or smart enough for that person. I don't have the years of experience that it takes for that job. I don't have X university on my CV in order to apply for that job. And so we justify all of these by considering these statements the objective truths about our lives. And we use those statements to justify our aversion towards trying to do the things we actually want to do by considering these statements some sort of data that should prevent us from trying, when in reality, all of this is far from being data, but is actually just self-perspective, is like self-narrative, is the way we see ourselves. And we use it to protect ourselves from trying and maybe failing. So trust me when I'm telling you, you don't need to rediscover yourself. You need to rediscover your beliefs, and you need to rediscover all of the labels that you gave yourself and that keep you from trying to do the things that you want to get done in this life. And that point essentially brings me to mindset shift number 2, and that is to always assume that you can. Assume that you can't get into your dream university. Assume that you can have the money that you want to have. Assume that you will find the love of your life. Assume that you will build that IKEA furniture you bought last weekend. Building confidence and trust towards yourself essentially is a process of having enough proof that shows yourself that you actually are who you think you are. So if you always start by assuming that you cannot, and then you proceed by not doing, then no matter how much you want to change your self-concept and the beliefs that you have about yourself, you're not going to be able to do that because you don't have enough proof that you can actually make it. Assuming that you can and then proceeding to actually trying to do that thing gives you the opportunity to build real evidence, real life proof that you are the capable person that you think that you are. And I know that this just sounds so incredibly evident, but you would be surprised by how many people self-sabotage by just thinking by default that they cannot. Point number 3 essentially takes point number 2 into the next level, and that is the fact that you can't push the limit of what is possible if you don't push yourself to do what you consider to be impossible. So we get raised in societies that literally embed to us all sorts of limiting beliefs that have to do with our race, our gender, our social class, our religion, the expectations that that specific society has of us. And so we all grow up having this kind of like imaginary ceilings that dictate how much ambition or success we're supposed to be having in our lives. Those types of ceilings can sound like, so if you're a woman, your life or like your career will end after you have kids. Or like a person like me cannot date X person because I am not X enough. Or I can't be a millionaire, like not me, I'm just a small town girl. Or just a simple statement like, well, this is all that we can do with the resources that we have. We can't really do better. Unless the laws that govern physics and nature and the existence as a whole dictate that something is impossible, I want you to assume that everything else, no matter what it is it is actually possible. Because if you think that something is impossible, then you will not go after it. And if you don't go after it, then you will end up contributing to an intergenerational narrative that makes entire generations, thousands and hundreds of people think that this world and its possibilities are so small that they can't even see them. I want you to assume that you can, and then proceeding by giving it an actual fair chance. Number 4 is really a very important mindset shift. And that is that there is a huge difference between goals and expectations. Goals are great, expectations are the problem. So we all have some pre-constructed ideas of how several life scenarios are supposed to unravel. Let's say, for example, that I want to start a business and I want to make that business my full-time job, my full-time occupation. That is a goal. Now, where the problem comes is that alongside that goal, I most likely also have some sort of expectations that have to do with how much time am I going to be working for that business in order to make it my full-time occupation, how much money I'm going to be making, how fast I'm going to be making that kind of money, what the life of a business owner looks like, etc., etc. Here's the problem. 9 out of 10 times, those expectations are completely wrong. They are just so far from reality, which makes sense, right? Because if you don't have that experience in the past, you've never done it before, you actually don't know what it's going to look like, what's it going to be. And so all of your expectations, all of your pre-constructed ideas about that specific endeavor are built or are based on what somebody else told you about building a business or whatever the endeavor is, or what social media told you about building a business or whatever the endeavor is. And that is extremely problematic because neither people nor social media are willing to, accept or admit the difficulties that they actually had in order to get where they want to get. Or even if they do want to admit it, maybe they're in a completely different stage of that endeavor. And so, their perspective now is not exactly what you're supposed to be facing in the beginning. And same goes for any other life scenario. So it could be a simple thing as getting into a relationship. The concept stays the same. You have an idea of how that's going to look like. And so when the expectation doesn't match the reality, you end up thinking that the goal was a problem. It wasn't. The problem is how you thought you're going to get there. And all of that, it's simply to say that if you take the how out of the what you want to actually succeed, then you will exponentially increase your chances to a happy life and to a successful life, because the truth is that the obstacle is the way. Facing all of those things that you thought are not supposed to be part of the process, and facing all those problems that make you question the goal in the first place, is the only way to actually make it and be shaped into the person that can enjoy this life that you so want and that can manage this life that you so want. Mindset shift number 5 is that I don't think you should trust yourself. I think you should trust your systems. So most of us, especially at the beginning of the year, we tend to create these goals or like these things that we want to achieve for ourselves in our lives the upcoming year. And these look like, for example, I want to eat healthier, or I want to lose weight, or I want to make more money, or I want to start a skincare routine. The problem is that most of us make these lists and then we somehow just trust ourselves to become that person, which I personally think is borderline delusional. Because if you don't have systems in place to enable you, to allow you to become that person, then it is almost statistically impossible to make it. And what do I mean by that is that if, for example, you're saying, okay, this year I want to eat healthier, what you should be thinking isn't just the fact that you want to eat healthier, but how are you going to do that? Meaning, exactly which days are you going to go to the supermarket? Are you going to have a list with you that tells you what you're supposed to buy at the supermarket? And when are you going to be writing that list? When are you going to be meal prepping or cooking to have those healthy meals available when you actually need them? And the reason why you should be thinking about these things is that you want to think how your goal matches your lifestyle, or you're already, how your life is already, instead of thinking, how am I going to become a whole new person and out of nowhere start eating healthy, etc., etc. Because otherwise, it is absolutely normal that you're going to come back home at night feeling super exhausted and very hungry, and you're obviously just going to eat whatever it is available, and what's available is not necessarily a healthy option. And that is because of the systems that you had in place, or in reality the lack of systems that you had in place. So I don't think you should trust yourself. I think you should trust your systems, and I think you should have systems in place for every single goal or every single thing that you want to achieve this year. Number 6 is that a lot of people think that they struggle with consistency or discipline. They don't. They actually struggle with concentration. You go to the bathroom and you bring your iPad with you. You are working and you are simultaneously scrolling. You are eating your dinner and you are watching TV, and so on and so forth. A lot of people think that they can't have enough consistency or discipline to perform the task they're supposed to be performing, but actually they haven't first mastered the art or the skill of simply being concentrated. There is so much peace and so much value in being able to complete one task without being interrupted by anything else, and without being willingly interrupted by anything else, which means that you need to master the art of doing what you want to do without doing anything else, because that means you get to have control over your life, and it means that you get to have control over where your attention goes, instead of random demands or people taking you one way or the other simply because they asked, or simply because a task or a demand came up. First, build concentration, then consistency, then discipline. Mindset shift number 7, and that's one that I'm really embracing this year, is that I'm not striving for perfect, I'm striving for good enough. Winston Churchill actually once said that perfection is better spelled paralysis. And other than the fact that I think he's absolutely right, I also think that business has something to teach us here, and that is MVP mentality. Minimum viable product. So most of us, what we tend to do is we say, for example, I want to get fit, and then we make it into a goal to go to the gym 6 times per week, when last week we had no idea where that gym actually finds itself. Or somebody says, I want to become a reader, and so the goal becomes, I'm going to read 50 pages every single day, when the book is actually going to be the second book in that reader's, list of books. And all of that to simply say that we tend to think that following the perfect process is actually going to guarantee perfect results. Nonetheless, the truth is that we can have perfect results when we follow the ideal process, not the perfect process. And the ideal process, it is supposed to be somewhat enjoyable, but most of all, it's supposed to be sustainable. So, for example, if the goal is to get fit, going to the gym 2 times per week maybe isn't the perfect process, but it's actually going to give that person great results in a 2-year span, over somebody else who's going to start going to the gym 6 times per week for 1 month, and then obviously he or she going to give up because it's not sustainable at all for that person. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be good enough. Number 8 is action over consumption. So most of us, we read books about how to become greater business people, or greater parents, or greater partners. And then for a few seconds, we have this dopamine burst that makes us feel as if we're already these great business people, or these great parents, or these great partners. Or for example, we watch content on how to become a content creator or create a community. And for a short amount of time, we think somewhere in our brains that we are already these people that have that community and create that content. Action over consumption. Read that book about how to become a better partner or a better parent or a better business person, and then go implement what you learn before starting another book. Watch that video of how you can film and become a better filmmaker, and then sit down and try to film before you watch another video of how you can better optimize your content. More consuming doesn't guarantee you a better life. More doing absolutely does. Number 9, who you compare yourself to matters. It's always, I'm not good enough, or I'm not pretty enough, or I'm not smart enough. But in reality, it's I'm not good enough compared to that person, or I'm not smart enough compared to that girl from my class in college, or I'm not this compared to that. And so I completely understand that, because I also do it. I think we all do it to a level, to an extent. But there are thousands of people who would give their lives to be you for a day. And I am not saying, never compare yourself to people who have more or are more, and only look at who is beneath you in a way, or who would want to be you, so you can boost your ego and feel like all that you could have done in this life is already said and done. But what I'm saying is that be conscious of that, and at the same time understand that you don't need to put yourself down in order to prompt yourself to move up. You don't need to say to yourself, I am not smart enough compared to that X person, in order to push yourself to study harder or to work harder. You can acknowledge where you are right now and all of the great work that you have done so far, and yet strive for more without being judgmental towards yourself and not acknowledging wherever it is that you are today. You are enough. Please know that. And obviously, I just had to save my best mindset shift for last, and that is that the grass doesn't get greener on the other side, but your garden can get bloomier on this side. The opportunity, the success, is not somewhere else. It's not next week or next month or in another country or in another place or with another person. What you have right now, today, if you water it, it's going to grow. If you put your effort in it, it is going to bloom. I think at some point in our lives, we all get to figure that out one way or another. But the reality is that there are no right choices. It's only about making the choice right, and that comes from devoting ourselves and putting all of our effort and everything that we have into making what we already have work, instead of hanging on to that tomorrow, to that future, to that opportunity that actually might never come. Because what we have here and now today is enough to make a life that is worth it. And a life that is worth it is a life that is full of happiness and satisfaction and feeling content and full. Wherever you are, whatever you do, please today make the choice to promise yourself, to devote yourself to you, to today. And I promise that if you do that, then soon enough, you will have more than you could ever imagine. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this video was helpful, and I really hope these mindset shifts were somewhat different from what you usually hear. I know they have helped me a lot, and I hope that they do the same for you. With that being said, you will find all of my links to all of my socials and all of my resources in the description box below. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again in my next video.